Anyway, this is 1955. I'm 25. I look back at it as if I were 15. You get warped, and because now I'm 85. So this was 25, 85, 60 years ago.
Yeah.
60 years ago this past summer. When I first came out, I was very unhappy because I was a city kid. And this was, if you've looked at this book, this is a little harbor that emptied out twice a day.
Right, we're
They
talking
spent
about
a lot of time dredging Mount Sinai Harbor.
Mount Sinai Harbor.
Yeah. And we bought the house from an Episcopalian convent that was up on a hill as the road began to turn back to Port Jefferson. And they wanted to get rid of it. The front part of the house was built in 1850. I'm wrong. Is it 1750? No, 1850. I'm not sure. I'll look it up. But and my father and mother came out. We stayed at a bungalow for a couple of summers. Then we bought this house, and we ran a small summer hotel there for about 6 or 8 years. Nantucket Lodge, and it was right on the harbor that emptied out like a bathtub twice a day.
How long do they have that?
I think it's about 8 years.
8 years?
About 8 years, yeah.
And did you help in
Oh
running
yeah.
this?
My cousins used to come out. I had Betty. She just died a couple of years ago. But Betty Murray, she was, every summer they came out, and I had a sister every summer, which was great, even before when
She
I was
was your
kid.
age.
1 year younger, yeah. And we used to clown around, and then when she waited on tables and I waited on tables, and that part was great. And the little sailboat was great. The rest of it, like I said, I regarded Long Island as Siberia. It was, after Brooklyn, after Manhattan, after living in Flatbush. No.
When you're 25.
When you're 25, at 25, we had just left the house in Park Slope. Not a brownstone, a gray stone. One notch up socially. You've ever seen the gray stone?
No.
Yeah, the gray or white stone. The typical houses in Manhattan and Brooklyn. They were the brownstones, but every once in a while you'd see a gray stone. That cost a little bit more. It was a bit of granite. Talk about snobbery.
Going for the upgrade.
Oh yeah, because that's my father's business. He bought and sold houses, and then built them out there, Mount Sinai Middle Place.
And your mom was real estate, right?
She was a real estate broker. I worked. My first job after college, I'd been to Columbia. My first job after college was in an ad agency, Madison Avenue.
Writing ads?
444 Madison Avenue. I was employed there 2 years. The first year, there was a lot of, the only thing I remember helping to write is Tide, Dirt's in. Tide's in, Dirt's out.
Oh.
They lived
Catchy.
in that commercial. TV was just beginning. They lived in that commercial for years.
Yeah, I think
But
I
it was
remember.
boring. The martinis were great. And like I said, it was great going to work. You get off at Grand Central and walk up Park Avenue, Madison. And at the Waldorf Astoria, if you came at the right time, down would come Harry Truman. He lived there, he retired there for a while, and then he'd take a walk every morning. And the other tower was Herbert Hoover, president before Roosevelt. But he just lived there. He was much older, of course. But Truman was the guy, and he set the paces. He walked militarily. Had been a soldier. And there'd be 5, 6, 7 of us would just walk with him. And cars would go up and then pass and salute him. He was very popular in New York.
Walk and talk?
Walk and talk. Oh, he was, yeah.
And what was the conversation?
He was big on. His wife had a garden in Kansas. What was it, Kansas City? So he'd talk about that, but mostly politics. Mostly politics, and that was great. But after the first year, I got assigned. They found out I had written that I spoke French. Or I said I spoke French. I really French. We're going to send you to Quebec, to Canada. They do market research. Now, Canada's Quebec's French is vastly different from French. And, but it was out, it was job, and the result, after Quebec, I was sent around the country. I had a great time for another year. You know, the airplanes, the rented cars, and all this. I was also beginning to drink. The peak of that came in, I think it was Toronto. I woke up in the morning, I forgot where I left the rented car. I remember riding around in a taxi. Toronto's a big city, it wasn't even then. And the last place I looked was, apparently I had carefully put it back in the garage slot. Underneath the hotel.
So you could hold your liquor.
So I could. And then after only a year, after 1 year on the road, you had to come back and work in the office. It's for training and training. The outfit was the model for that musical, How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying. And the Suits, the show today, the Suits, that show about advertising, yeah. It was pretty well done, Benton and Bowles. It was headed by a kid movie star who had grown up, Freddie Bartholomew. He was an English kid. He was finally beaten by Mickey Rooney for the movies, but he's in the early pictures. So I decided, okay, I was going to help my father. My father was home. He was sick. So I came home, joined the business. My mother was delighted. I'm an only child.
So now you're out in Mount Sinai.
I'm out in Mount Sinai, but the office was on 25A, Port Jeff Station.
What was it called, the office?
That was Nantucket Realty, and then Murray Realty. God, that's a good question. I wasn't there that long. What had happened with me with picture now, your father's the builder, your mother's the realtor. They two own the business. They got along very well in business. And they probably know him too. But they generously offered me 10% of the business. And of course, being the only child, work at it, you know, you got a business. No, I couldn't work between them. And it was a famous thing, I threw something in the office. My father wasn't there. I wouldn't have done it. I was a bit in front of the desk. It broke the glass in the window of the door. Not the old glass panel. My mother she's at the desk. She says, "Why did you do that?" I said, "This way, I feel better." I said, "This way I don't have to kill you both." I walked off. We had a conference. My father said, practically line out of the movie, "You should be a teacher. Don't go into business again," he said. "And don't go back to advertising because you'll be a drinker." And he knew, because he was a bit of a drinker himself back in there when he was he worked for Lincoln Motors when he first came over.
So was
that's
that good advice?
Yeah. I taught for 32 years, and I loved it.
In Bayshore, right?
In Bayshore, yeah.
What level?
History 11th and 12th, yeah. And the last 10 years I was senior class advisor, so I met all the kids. And you put on the shows and that sort of thing. It was great. What's nice about this part of my life is each year in June, another 50-year-old class is commemorated. And these it's like the prime time for me, because I retired in 85.
All right,
So like this year was the class of 65. And it was nice. And
Well, you have quite a few classes
Yeah,
yet to
about
go then.
the senior, about 250 kids showed up. Kids in there, 68, 70 years of age, you know. I was the only one there with any hair on my head. I get, oh man. The vanity, I've never got since, I don't think.